You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Hi, my sassy friend. Welcome back to another episode of Cash and Sass. I am Lisa Marie, the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach and, of course, this podcast. And today with me, I have Jenny Whichello, and she is a startup CFO, award-winning finance expert that combines her knowledge of financial planning and money mindset to help women build lasting wealth, my favorite thing. Jenny's unique approach to finance couples the inner work of money, fostering an abundance mindset, with the outer tactical work, which is your core financial planning processes, to help her clients build vision-aligned financial roadmaps. With over a decade of experience, she's on a mission to help women have blissful relationships with their money. Love that. While building the kind of wealth that can transform individual lives and the world. So I want to tell you, thank you for being here with me. And I absolutely love that you call financial roadmaps. I call it sassy money roadmap. So money roadmap, financial roadmap. I love the terminology and the fact that you do it aligned with, their vision, because that's what I do, is aligned with their core values, their vision, and their desires, because I believe that if we're trying to build wealth, then it needs to be aligned, because otherwise it's not really wealth. You're still broke because you're miserable. Mm-hmm. So thank you again for being here. And one of the things I wanted to dive into was one of the things that you said was you made some money mistakes in your 20s. And I just like to share some of those, just so the audience understands that they're not alone, right? And just kind of dive into that, and then actually where it led you from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, one thing to know about me that'll help put my poor decision-making of my 20s in context is I've always been really good at math, highly analytical, excelled at anything math related. I went to college for accounting. I got my MBA in finance. Right after my MBA at the age of 26, I landed a VP of finance role, and I was always really good with numbers. But that didn't matter when it came to my personal finances. I still managed to make what I'd call now silly mistakes. I try not to call them stupid or dumb, because I truly was doing the best that I could at that time. But some of them, are things that probably sound familiar to a lot of your listeners. So racking up credit card debt, making good money, but never seeming to have enough of it, and then having to get into debt to support whatever it was I felt I needed at that time. So I was stuck in that constant cycle of, $10,000, $20,000 at times of credit card debt, being very intentional about paying it off, and then finding myself right back in the same situation. I've always been a very good goal setter, and very a high achiever. So setting goals was always something that came really easy to me. Following through on those goals, not so much. So, I would say, okay, I'm going to start saving. I'm going to start tucking money away. And I would create some savings accounts, and I'd start transferring money. And then before you knew it, I turned off those transfers, those automatic transfers, right? But probably the most meaningful and somewhat funny story I like to tell is when I was about 25 years old. A lot of my friends, I was living in the DC metro area. A lot of my friends in DC came from wealthy families, and they were 25, and their parents were giving them money to buy their first homes or condos. And this was pre the housing collapse, and DC, the real estate was going sky high. And I had to have one too. Now I didn't have a wealthy family to give me down payment money or anything like that. So I managed to find a real estate agent who he had never done any real estate before. I was his first client. He hit the streets of DC and found an apartment that hadn't been listed yet, a condo. I put in a bid for that. It got accepted. I wrote a very sad story to the owner, and he decided to sell his place to me. Anyway, the shocking part of the story is it never occurred to me to save for any sort of down payment or to save for even my closing costs. So the day of my closing, I realized that I needed, I think, a little over $4,000 of cash to bring to the closing. So I went to a couple of ATMs and I used my credit cards to pull cash advances. and then took that money to the bank and got them to give me a cashier's check. And I strutted myself right into that closing office and walked out with the keys. And it never occurred to me that that actually isn't how you should go about making some of the most important financial decisions and taking the most important steps of your financial life. But it didn't occur to me. I was very much focused on the end goal and how can I quickly and effortlessly get to that end goal. And I'll worry about whether this is the best move to make later on when that catches up with me.
Yeah, and I think all of us can say that we've made some, and I don't like using the word stupid or dumb because, I tell people all the time, the decisions we made are decisions we made normally based off of the facts and the information we had at the time. Now, maybe, yes, now that we know what we know now, we wouldn't have made those decisions then, but did we know what we know now then? And if the answer is no, then okay, you did what you did based off of the information you had. Maybe there should have been a little bit more detail that you dug into. You still did the best you could, and you can't do anything about the past. And what I like to do is focus on the present. And so, what are some of the shifts that you made to get you from that type of mindset thinking? Because again, that's a mindset thinking, right? Mm-hmm. What sort of things got you from there to where you are now, where you actually help women like I do change their mindset to abundance and be able to create a financial plan, money roadmap plan that actually works for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I went down many a dead end thinking, there must be some knowledge I'm lacking. I don't have certain skills that are only relevant to personal finance as opposed to corporate finance. And I read a ton of books and, tried to up-level my skills as much as possible, and nothing changed in my trajectory. The tipping point for me was when, separate to my struggles with personal finance, I stumbled upon the concept of the subconscious mind. And I had never even heard about that. I hadn't learned about that in school. No one I knew had ever talked about anything like that. And I dove into that world and I started to understand how powerful our minds are, that our minds and the core beliefs that we have, whether they're known to us or not, drive us to take certain action. And over time, that action becomes habitual and it becomes our programming system. How we get up in the morning and how we turn on our internal machine and we ramp up for the day and we get going, and we're stuck in that cycle. And so we can try to take as much new action as possible, but as long as we have that underlying computer programming running, that's telling us, I'll always be in debt. I'm bad with money. I'll never be wealthy. Wealth is for somebody born on the other side of town, right? As long as that's the computer programming running in us, it doesn't matter how hard we work to take new action. We'll never build and sustain the momentum to follow through and have it make real change in our lives. And that was the awakening that I came to. And when I started to do the deep inner work of understanding the quality of my relationship with money, is when I became aware that that relationship was very dysfunctional. And a lot of that dysfunction came from my childhood. My parents, no fault of their own, but they grew up very poor. And so they very much had a scarcity mindset of, you have to work really, really hard to get any money. And at best, you're going to get by in life. You're going to have enough to cover your bills and maybe put your kids in college, but that's it. Anything beyond that is like not even a concept we relate to. The idea of building wealth or saving for long-term goals wasn't something that was in my DNA, so to speak. And so here I was making really good money, 6 figures at the age of 26, but internally operating from a place of, I just need enough to get by. Right. And so
from that scarcity and lack mindset, and you don't realize it, but that's because it was ingrained in you. Yeah,
absolutely. It was that computer program running. And so the first step to any kind of change is always awareness. Right. And so bring awareness, do the inner work to surface your core beliefs about money and explore them and get curious about them. Where did this come from? What's the origin here? How has this served me? How has this not served me? Right. When you can do that process of examination, you can step back and examine the thought, is when you start the next step here And that's in separating yourself from it. So acknowledging I'm actually not this basket full of thoughts here. I'm not that person. And if I can see myself as separate, then I can start to move in the direction of becoming, having a different relationship and a different thought process around money altogether. So I went through a phase where I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning and I was meditating and doing deep self-reflection work for a good 2 hours every day. I called it my Ananda project. That was sort of this project, this name I gave to this project I was doing on myself. And Ananda means bliss. And so once I came out the other end of this process and had transformed my relationship with money by way of understanding that the majority of my beliefs around money were nonsense, and I had a lot of proof that I'm actually capable and worthy of a lot more than just getting by, things seem to unfold in a very effortless, at times magical way, where new opportunities to make a lot more money became present in my life. Skills that I knew, but I had never fully learned how to monetize became real and apparent power horse for how I could make more money. And it all happened very quickly. And there's science behind that. When you change the way that your mind works, you start to filter in the new things that you want and filter out the old junk, right? And so opportunities were always there for me.
Absolutely.
Never saw them. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that we all have those opportunities, right? That we all have those opportunities to where we just don't realize it, especially if we're ingrained into that lack or scarcity mindset, and we're not aware that we actually have that, ingrained or whatever. Because again, you're making the money, you have the money, but you can't figure out, why am I always broke? Why am I here?
Yep.
Because I've had a client who, made tons and tons of money, but she spent it as fast as she got it. And that came from what she was ingrained in, where she wasn't supposed to have money because she didn't come from money. So because she had that, it took retraining your brain, working on that mindset and abundance to shift it.
Yeah.
And, and I tell people all the time, so look, it's a story. It's a money story. Whether you told yourself or someone told you, it's still a story, and we can change our story. All we got to do is turn the page, and yes, I make it sound so much simpler than it really is. And that's actually what you do, is you turn the page and you start retraining your brain on that abundance and that you are capable of. And like you said, seeing outside of it, of all the things that you had, the possibilities that are right there in front of you that you just actually weren't really acknowledging. One of the things that you said was that the mistakes you made was that you had to do like steps. Like you had to, do specific things in order, cure your money woes, I think is what you called it, with action alone and not actually working on that mindset.
Yep.
And I want to talk about that. One, what are some of the action steps? Because I believe you have to do both. I believe you can't do one without the other. And you can't do the action steps on those money woes without doing the mindset. But what are some of the action steps that you did? And then what was it that made you realize that, hey, this isn't going to work unless I work on this too?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Not taking action is just wishful thinking, right? And a lot of people throw around the word manifestation, and they think it's just sit around and think about a red sports car showing up in my driveway and one day it will. It's not how it works.
Right?
Manifestation has a lot to do with you taking inspired action and being open to opportunities. Right. And so I think wealth, there's two types of wealth. There is inner wealth and outer wealth. Inner wealth is contentment. It's a healthy, mindful approach to how you make financial decisions. It's having peace of mind. It's knowing that there's always opportunities available to you. It's knowing that you may not see all the answers right in your face, but that they exist, that everything can be figured out, right? Building up a reserve of inner wealth is, in my mind, an action of priming yourself for outer wealth. There are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, are able to get their hands on outer wealth, and they lose it very quickly. We see that with lottery winners, right? We see that with people who get an inheritance, right? Now, part of that is financial literacy deficits, right? But there's an element there that those people weren't primed for wealth. And so when it came into their life, they subconsciously had to take action to get rid of it, right? So there are two parts to building wealth and having financial abundance, and it's both inside and external. And if you work on the inside part first, it makes getting and keeping and building the external abundance a lot easier. And so you can't do one without the other, and you can't take action without priming yourself for success first.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it that made you realize that for you?
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of hit a brick wall because I felt like I have exceptional knowledge. I have done my homework. I know how to build complex financial models, detailed budgets. I know how to manage cash flows. I'm managing millions and millions of dollars of incoming cash and outgoing cash for corporations. And so being so successful at it, I've won awards. And yet I can't apply those same principles to my own life. And that the light bulb really went off that there's something else at play here. And when I stopped trying to find external solutions, and the external solutions most people chase after are, I need to make more money. I got to figure out, I got to hustle, get a side hustle, whatever I got to do. I got to negotiate, get more money. I'm not saying that women out there should not drive to make as much money as they absolutely can. You absolutely should, but you should understand that's not
absolutely.
the solution. More money doesn't solve anything, really. And then the other default that people fall into is I got to start cutting back. I got to restrict myself. I've got to put myself on a strict budget, right? Those two will never be fruitful. And I learned that for myself because I've tried all those tactics many times over. And so I stopped.
So have I.
Yeah, I think everyone has, yeah. And so I stopped. I said to myself, let me just take a breather. Let me stop trying to do stuff. Let me spend some time being present first. That's why I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning, because that was the best time when I could be present and have time and space and silence, right? And let me go inside here and let me do this inner work of understanding my relationship with money and working to have a greater vision for what I wanted my relationship with money to look like, right? So I talk about visioning a lot. Visioning is there's two parts to it. There's having a vision for how you want money to show up in your life, the relationship, the quality of that relationship. And the second is, what is the vision for your life? What do you want to have and experience here when you're on earth, right? And that could be anything under the sun that your imagination can spring forward for you. So focusing on the vision really started to propel me down the path of seeing that vision start to come to fruition. And that's the best part of this whole process, because when you can tap into your imagination and your subconscious mind to understand what it is that truly gives you fulfillment, what is it that when you're on your deathbed, you're going to be most grateful for? If you can do that and get some clarity on those components there, and then build financial goals that align with that, you are now building a roadmap to achieve your wildest dreams in a way that you have such a deep emotional connection to that you will never abandon those goals. That there's no chance that you're going to risk not achieving those goals. I'll give you a client example. I have a client who has always struggled with setting financial goals and making any progress towards them, with one exception. This client is nearly completely blind. And so every 2 years, deaf. Every 2 years, they save up for new hearing aids. And they are diligent about that. Every 2 years, they have exactly the amount of money they need for those new hearing aids. Now, why is it that they can achieve that goal and not achieve all the other financial goals they've set in their life? It's because that goal has an emotional connection for them. They understand what the quality of their life will be like if they do not have those hearing aids. That is how every financial goal should feel for us. We should get emotional when we think about every savings goal that we have and every debt, repayment goal that we have. And so that was really what propelled me down a completely different path, down a path of becoming, in a very short amount of time, the first millionaire in my family tree, down a path towards building my coaching program.
Yeah, see, I love that. And one of the things that you said that I say all the time, and it was you have to work on both. You can't just do a strict budget. People think, okay, I gotta have it so strict. Well, the problem with that is it's just like a fad diet. When we make strict diets, what happens? We fail at them. It is a proven fact. It doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 3 months from now. We fail at them. Hence the Butter Busters, why it's Butterbuds while it's gone. That tells you my age. If that tells you my age, I remember Butterbuds. Which is reason why what all those fat-free diets, they're gone because they don't work because they're so strict, and everybody ends up falling off of them. And what the whole fitness world has been saying all this time, gurus, is that it's not restricting. It's, making sure that you're, what is it? My fitness coach tells me 80-20, 80% you're on mark, 20% you're not. So if you've got those days where you're going to eat off, if you want it to be 80-20, 80-20, I can do. Okay. I can do. And I was like you, I was a CFO. I was an auditor at a foreclosure law firm. I audited their big, huge bank accounts. Okay. I'm talking about escrow accounts. I was in charge of making sure all the money was where it's supposed to be, making sure it lined up. I could do spreadsheets galore, and I couldn't make, quote unquote, the budget work. And I'm like, why? There's something, and I don't know if you did this. I beat myself up. I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am. Maybe, I'm only meant to do this for the corporate world. Maybe, all these things. And then all of a sudden I went, wait a minute. I'm awesome at spreadsheets. I can make all this stuff work. There's a piece missing. And it was when a coach said, if someone treated you like crap and talked bad about you, would you stick around or come back later? The answer was no. Actually, I said, hell no. And a lot of people did. And then her response back was, then why would money?
Yeah.
And that was my pivoting moment, my light bulb moment. And then I did what you did. I did a nosedive, like as deep as you could, into money mindset, money stories, all the things on the internal work, the abundance mindset and all that. And doing that was when I went, oh, okay. And then I was like, okay, but you can do all of this, but if you still don't take some action to managing the money, you're still going to be broke. I tell people all the time, I don't care if you make $100,000 or $50,000. If you don't manage it, you're still going to be broke. Yeah. And that was then when I realized that those cookie cutter budget sheets don't work either, because they're not aligned with the goals and values, and they don't take those one-off expenses into account, or the yearly things that we pay, or any of that. They tell you to list it, but they don't actually say, hey, this is how you should prepare for it, right? And so that's when I came up with the money roadmap, and, and started doing it. And I'm sure you do the thing. You tell your clients the same thing. You walk your talk, right? You don't just tell people what you do. You actually can say, this is what I do. And you and I are alike in a lot of those ways. And I love that, because I tell my clients all the time, look, if you make it so strict and then it's not aligned with your wants and your desires and your values, it's not going to work. And the reason why is because it's not aligned with your values and your desires. That's the reason why it's not going to work. You have to be excited about it. You have to get emotional about it, and like, oh, wow, I just paid this, and say thank you and have that gratitude. And that's what changed it for me, was that little pivoting moment. And people always laugh and they're like, how do you remember that? And I said, because it was a pivotal moment. And when I realized that I'm not the only one that probably has these stories and just doesn't realize it, and that we all can build wealth regardless of whether we came from it or not, which
Yep.
is what I teach and what I support women to do, is create, retain, and expand wealth regardless if you came from it or not. Both of us are living proof we didn't come from wealth and we've created it.
Yep.
And so I just think it's really important for women to realize that we can create it, we can retain it, we can expand it to change the world. And it doesn't matter if we came from it. What matters is that we change the way our brain's thinking and, the action steps that we take with it. What are some of the things that you have seen or shifts that you have? Here's what I want. What is one of the first steps that you would have someone take that is saying, okay, I'm ready? What's something they can do to start that process? And I love asking this because I say it all the time, like on Facebook and all that, one of the steps. And I believe that there's more than one way to do something. And so I want my listeners to realize if what I say doesn't actually, coincide or light bulb go off, there might be another way.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So the first step that I take with all of my clients is I have them do 2 exercises for me. I have them write a why statement. Why are we working together? Why did you pick up the phone and connect with me? Like, why is this happening right now? And I ask them, when you write that why statement, I want you to write it about what you're running towards, not what you're running away from. I want you to start to reframe your life. Not, I'm working with Jenny because I'm drowning in debt and I want to get out of it. No, I'm working with Jenny because I know financial freedom is for me, because I know that I'm worthy of having peace of mind and stability in my money, et cetera, right? So that's the first exercise. Get clear on the why and write it from the perspective of what you want, not what you want to get away from. And then the second exercise that I ask them to do is project yourself into the future. We have finished working together. You have surfaced the vision for your life. You've transformed your relationship with money. You have built an achievable financial plan, and you have a roadmap for executing on that plan. How are you going to feel? How are you going to feel? And the reason I ask them to get clarity on that right up front before we've done anything else together is because I want them to start to embody and become that person well in advance of their debt being, eroded, of their wealth sitting in their bank account, right? Well in advance of them even having clarity on what the outcomes are going to be as we work together. It's so important to this process. I mentioned this before, this concept of priming yourself. And you brought up the great, I use the metaphor of losing weight all the time because people tend to understand the concept of our relationship with food and how it manifests externally with us, but they don't quite understand it's exactly the same with money, right? So if you feel like an overweight, lazy person, are you the person that gets up and goes to the gym 4 days a week? You're not. You have got to trick yourself to believe I am already 50 pounds lighter and I love going to the gym and I'm a high energy person who pushes myself to build new muscles, whatever it is, right? And so you have to embody that person in order to build and sustain the momentum to actually get to the end result that you're looking for. And it's the same thing with money. So that's why I asked them, what's your why and how are you going to feel?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love the fact that you use the same analogy as I do. I always go to the fitness and the diets. I'm like, do you remember these fat diets? And we're like, okay, why didn't they work? They're so strict.
Mm-hmm.
And why doesn't this budget work? And they go, oh, but when you say it without comparing, their brain doesn't, get it.
Yeah.
Because they don't see it with being that way with money and embodying yourself. So embody yourself to say, I have financial freedom. I am creating wealth. I have wealth. I have abundance. And you keep telling yourself that, right? And you keep working towards that way and keep telling yourself that. And I call it action manifesting, but it's action mindset work is what I believe it is. And those are taking those steps to change, the story. And what I always have my clients do, or even people I'm talking to in my group, is I tell them, acknowledge what your relationship is with money now. Because if you don't, you can tell me a lie, you can tell Jenny a lie, you can tell anybody a lie, you can tell everybody, anybody a lie, except yourself. You need to at least acknowledge to yourself what your relationship with money is, because you can't change that, what your relationship with wealth is, period. You can't change and make that shift without first acknowledging it. And Jenny and I both said that at the beginning of the show, is you have to acknowledge it. And I love the fact that you do that why statement, because to me, that's kind of like writing a letter to from your future self. Is, where are you wanting to be? What are you wanting your story to be? And I do the same thing, except I say, what are you wanting your story to be? Basically, it's your why. What are you wanting your story to be? We've now acknowledged what it is. What are you wanting? And so it's basically, what are you wanting to go to, not what you want to come from. And so it's very similar. We just call it two different things, which is really cool that we do that. And so I think that's really important to also to see that if what she said aligns with you and you like how she said it, then do it that way, because you're still going to be able to make steps to change your relationship with money. And that's what we're both wanting. That's what I'm wanting with this podcast. For our listeners, you have a free offer, and I would like for you to share that with them, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a number of free tools on my website. But if you're really interested, based on the conversation that we've had today, if it's gotten your wheels spinning and you think you might not have the best relationship with money, I actually have a 10-day money mindset reset course that you can take for free on my site. If you go to blissandwealth.com/reset. So this is a 10-day course that's sort of a very quick version of a lot of the work that I do with my clients one-on-one, where you surface the quality of your relationship with money, you examine it, as I discussed before, get curious about it, you understand it at a deeper level, and then you work to start to change it and transform it. And you, believe it or not, you can actually do a lot of that work in 10 days if you're serious about following through on the exercises and listening to the content.
Oh, absolutely. And we will make sure that we put that website in the show notes, because honestly, y'all, I even still go and look at my money mindset and every time we level up, I'll have money mindset, the little gremlin, I call him, will come up and start saying things. And that's when I'll go into that toolbox. And I consider this would be a tool. And this would be a toolbox to go in, a tool to have in your toolbox to go into and say, okay, do I need a reset? Because even me, I'm still working on my mindset. That's not something that's ever going to stop. And so having different tools is really important. So I absolutely love that you have this. Thank you very, very much for being here with me today. And for my sassy listener, I hope you see the different ways that you can actually change that scarcity mindset into abundance. And remember, until next time, stay sassy. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.